Two Guys in the Dark.
I will admit first off that I have heard a lot of these deep web, dark web stories, and I've always called bullshit. However, a close friend of mine swore that she had been to this place, and that she had seen some really messed up things. Some that she would talk about, others that she refused. She said some of the things she had seen would haunt her for the rest of her life. I should have just let it go at that, but I wanted to believe that she was making it all up, and there was no such place. But I was the one that was wrong. You know the drill by now. Downloaded Tor, Onion, and found the hidden wiki. I'd been warned about some of the links, and how they can trick you into some really crazy and horrible things. I clicked a few. They were mostly sex meetups, escort requests, drug deals. Needless to say, it was really starting to think that I was right, and that the deep web was just an easy way to make shady deals that couldn't be traced. It was lame, tame, and a little bit boring. I looked around for something remotely interesting, until I found the link, The Night Watchman. Okay, this could be interesting. I was thinking that it might be some guy telling creepy stories, or walking around a sleepy town at night, or something like that. What greeted me was a flat black page with 3 videos blown up to cover the space, sitting side by side in the line. They were paused, and on each one of them was a picture of different people. The first one had a family of 4, a mom, dad, and 2 little girls. The second was a couple with a female being very obviously pregnant. The third was just one woman and her dog, a cute black lab with a white streak over his left eye. Before I could study them for too long, a voice came through. It was male, but slightly distorted so that I couldn't really hear what he actually sounded like. Here is what he said. Good evening. Tonight, the Night Watchmen have brought you 3 unique households. Each of them live different lives, believe different things, have different future plans. He stopped there and cleared his throat. For this next part, it sounded like he was smiling. Watch each video and then choose one. I really didn't understand the point of this task, but honestly, my interest was piqued. I was curious about where this was going. I clicked the first video. There wasn't much to it. It showed the family in their home, skipping through moments of them watching TV, playing in the backyard, having supper, the parents putting the kids to bed, starting to make love. It caught off there. Thank God. I was starting to feel like a weird creep. I was seeing a part of the family's lives that were meant for only them. I reluctantly clicked the next video. I was transported into the home of the young couple getting ready to start a family. It skipped through to them in the baby's room, hugging, and generally looking excited. They ate salads at the kitchen table, went through some mail, looked through baby books and magazines, watched a show on TV, and then went to bed, snuggling up together. This one was so sweet that I couldn't help but smile at what I had seen. However, I was still a voyeur in their personal moments. I had gone through the others. I figured it was only right to watch the last one. This one was of a single woman living with just her dog. She was a bit of a slob. She had dishes piled up, laundry on the love seat in the living room, and trash that was overflowing. The other 2 had been pretty tidy, the family having some toys and laundry lying around, the couple with the very clean house. I wondered if there was a point to that, since it did show these aspects in the video. Anyways, the woman seemed lonely. She watched a lot of TV, ate a half-gallon of ice cream, checked her cell phone every few minutes, obviously hoping for a call or a text, played fetch with her dog, fed him, and then went to bed, taking her phone with her. She began to masturbate, and I began to feel incredibly awkward. Thankfully, this one ended there as well. I waited to see what was next. The videos reset, and went back to the stills of each one. The voice came back over again and said, Now that you have seen, which will you choose? I sat there and watched, praying that someone else was here waiting and watching this too, and would choose. But nothing happened for a few minutes. The videos disappeared, and another 3 videos began playing simultaneously. These turned my stomach. They were all 3 tall men. I assumed that they were men by what character I could catch. They each wore the same clothing, black shirt, pants, boots, and a long black trench coat that dangled around their ankles. To top it all, they wore a large wide-brimmed black hat. "Have you decided? Which one will you choose?" The voice chimed in over the obviously live feed. "Death comes on swift wings for all ill-fated friends. You must choose one. That is how the game goes." He thought this was a game? I was horrified. Was I really supposed to choose who died here and who survived? It was ridiculous, and I went to close the page down. Calmly the voice began again. "Before you close us down, you should know that if you do not choose one of the three shown here, your family will be next." I was startled by this declaration, but figured that he was just trying to scare me. He was doing a really good job, truthfully. "Anna," he said. My heart skipped a beat. He said my name. Now I was officially terrified. I just wanted this to stop. "Anna, dear sweet Anna, I know it's a difficult choice, but it must be made. Please, if you will, direct the night watchmen to their chore." The original videos came back, and I knew that it meant it was time for me to pick someone to die. Maybe it was just a horrible joke that some hacker and his friends like to play on unsuspecting deep web surfers. I stated out loud. It was more to make me feel better than anything, even though my heart was still pounding. I looked at the people once again. There was a family there. Children. I couldn't choose them. Then there was the expecting couple. I couldn't do this. It was too much. "Choose." The normally calm voice barked at me. "Choose now." I jumped and looked at the last one. It was the lonely woman with the dog for a companion. She had the least to lose. She was alone without kids or a husband. It wasn't okay, but I quickly clicked her video. "Very well, so it shall be." The voice was calm and smooth once again. The videos of the night watchmen came back up. "Night watchman, a choice has been made. You may attend to your work." I watched in horror as two of the men began walking towards the houses in front of them, and the third one walked away from a house. I was confused. I chose the lonely woman, but our watchman was walking away. He disappeared into the night, and then the feed cut off. The other two videos grew bigger and took up the screen. "What's going on? What's going on?" was all I could say to myself. The two watchmen that it showed, each effortlessly broke into the houses. I was biting my bottom lip so hard that it bled. The feeds walked along with them as they each silently roamed through the houses. One watchman walked into the set-up baby room, looked around gingerly, then made his way across the hall to the other bedroom. The other watchman walked slowly down the hall, seemingly trying to decide which room to enter. He chose the children's room. I looked over to the first one. He stood at the foot of the sleeping couple's bed, holding a huge machete. He walked to one side and began swinging wildly. There were screams so loud and frightened that I felt like I might pass out or throw up. I looked over to the other video, reluctantly. The watchman stood in the children's room, right in the center of the pink bunk bed. He also brandished a machete. I screamed as he raised it up and reached over and pulled the computer plug out of the wall. I was terrified, traumatized. What I had just witnessed. What had I just done? My mouth felt dry. My head was spinning out of control. My heart felt like it might burst from my chest. After several hours, I decided to go check my computer and hope that the nightmare I witnessed was gone. There was nothing. Days later, I was checking my email when I stopped and recoiled in horror. There was an email from the night watchman. I finally opened it. I really didn't know why. Maybe I was hoping that they would tell me I had been punked or something. Instead, it was just a few large words on an otherwise white background. "Jenna thanks you for excluding her from a night watchman fate. We thank you for your choices too. We truly enjoyed our encounter with you. Come play again, any time." Attached was a picture of the lonely woman walking her dog in the park, still looking down at her phone. I will never, ever access the deep web ever again. I'm 26 years old, blonde hair, blue eyes, about 5'6", so pretty typical really. This seems really pointless now, but I promise it is important information though. It will mean a lot later. It's hard to decide where to start. so I'll just run you through from the beginning. 2 weeks ago, I was out for a run before work, and before the road got hectic with the heavy morning traffic. There's a fog. I remember this distinctly, because it was so thick that it actually made it hard to see about 10 feet in front of me. Before I knew it, a dark red SUV started to become visible through the heavy clouds. I don't know what happened here, really, as it was all so fast. 1 minute I was running my normal route. The next I was grabbed and thrown into the SUV. I guess they used chloroform or something like it to knock me out, because when I came to, I was in a solid white room with absolutely nothing in it but me. I don't know what was worse, realizing that I had been kidnapped, or the maddening essence of the dead and empty room that I was being kept in. For the 2 days that I saw and heard no one, minus the terrified screams, pleas, and downright pitiful begging that escaped my mouth. Finally they came, but it was no blessing. I was taken to another white room with actual stuff in it, stripped down to nothing and washed like a dog, cold water and all. There were 3 men and 1 woman in the room. The woman just sat back and observed, every now and again writing something down. The men heckled me, tossed me around between them. They touched me, but blessedly the woman spoke up before it went any further. She had a very thick German accent. I remember she said for them to wait until it was my turn, that they didn't want to spoil anything. I was taken to yet another solid white room, but this one wasn't empty. There was a chair in the center, screwed into the floor, an empty box, about the size of a coffee pot box, and a metal swivel table covered with white cloth. Here I plopped into the chair, my ankles and wrists tightly bound with heavy metal latches. I was terrified. I asked them what they were going to do with me. No one spoke a word as they went about their tasks. I felt like an object to them, not a human, just like them. Everyone left, and once again, I was alone. A whirring noise brought me out of the panic attack I was beginning to have. I watched in horror as an extra-large television descended from above me and settled in against the wall directly in front of me. A man dressed like an old butcher from the 50s, and a woman dressed like an old-fashioned nurse, came in and uncovered the metal table, revealing a plethora of small tools, a scalpel, several other types of med-surg equipment, dental tools, and other things I didn't really recognize. I have never been so terrified in my entire life. My hell truly began when the screen lit up, and a small group of people came up in their own chat bubbles. The butcher asked the nurse if everything was in order. She nodded and said in a German accent, "Yes, doctor." "Everyone has paid." He smiled and thanked the group of 6 on the screen. My body trembled beyond my control. "Very well, let's begin," the butcher commented. The nurse walked over to the screen and turned up the volume. "What is your first request?" she asked the panel. The first person in line on the screen said, "Bite her nipple, hard, then peel it off nice and slow." This is where I began screaming. They began attempting to put a ball gag in my mouth, but the man on the screen stated, "Let her scream." The nurse walked behind me, grabbed my breast hard, and sticking them out as far as she could. The butcher then leaned down and bit the right one. White-hot pain seared through my body. Just as the man wanted, I screamed. The nurse, which I heard the butcher call Olga, brought a long, thin pair of strangely shaped tongs and a scalpel. The butcher took the scalpel, leaving the nurse with the tongs. She grabbed my nipples and pulled it as far as she could. So far, I thought she might rip it off. Then the butcher stepped forward and began to slice through the tender skin of my breast. I screamed, but my captors didn't even react. I tried struggling, but it only made things worse. In a matter of just a few minutes, as the butcher took his sweet time, I was left with no nipple on my right breast. I could feel warm blood leaking down my stomach and pooling underneath me. The nurse and the butcher looked expectantly at the screen, awaiting for their next order. I stole a glance at the man currently commanding my torture. He was just a normal guy. They all were. Out of 6 men, only 1 looked slightly uncomfortable. They wore suits and ties, and looked like professionals, each appearing to have just stepped out of the office. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I'm not sure what I expected, but it wasn't suits and ties. My heart sank. If these guys were capable of this, then anyone was. Struggling against my restraints, Determined not to suffer any longer, I cried out and cursed the men behind that damned television screen. I cursed the butcher and the nurse. I continued my charade until I heard one of the men say, "Undo her and beat her against the wall." I looked back up in shock. Was there no end to their cruelty? Quickly, the nurse moved the cart of horror toys out of the room and returned to my side. Together they moved my shackles, and I was free. I bolted for the door, but was yanked backward by my hair again. I screamed in pain, which seemed to please everyone but myself. Before I could even fall, the butcher swung me around, still holding me by my hair, slammed me up against the wall opposite the door. I hit it pretty hard enough to knock the wind out of my lungs. Again, before I was able to think of what to do, I was slammed into yet another wall, then another, and another until the man with the request said it was enough for him. The butcher grabbed me by my arm and forced me in front of the screen. I have never felt so exposed, so vulnerable, so small in all of my life. I prayed that they were done. The nurse stepped forward then and said, "You have 7 more minutes of paid time. What is your final wish for our little beauty here?" She gestured on to me. There was silence for a moment, as the men seemed to be deciding what they wanted to do for the finale. But the request was nothing I had braced for. Rape her. I was floored. I begged and pleaded that they change their minds. To the butcher, to please not. To the nurse, as a woman, to please stop this. But my words fell on deaf ears. And the butcher seemed determined to oblige, as I heard the sound of his leather apron hit the floor and a belt come undone. He still held me by my arm. I struggled with all my might to get away, but I was jarred when the hulk of a man turned and backhanded me right across my face. I nearly fell, and he used this to his advantage, throwing me the rest of the way to the ground, positioning me so that the men could see everything from the sideways view. "Make it rough," one of the men called. The butcher crawled over top of me and smiled. "With pleasure," he stated, wrapping one large, beefy hand around my throat and pushing down. By the time he was finished with me, my screams had diminished to pathetic-sounding sniffles and begging. I just wanted this torture over with. I wanted them to kill me, and this was the moment that he would. Sure, that would be the man's last request. I was shocked to hear them say to keep me alive for another time, and that they would likely be back. The man lifted me off of the ground, licked my ear, and whispered, "Looks like it's your lucky night." Sweetheart? I was far too exhausted from the pain and shame to fight back. I just let them take me, praying that they would end the torture. Unfortunately, I immediately was shoved back into my little white room and left there until they decided that if I put this information on the normal internet, it would bring in more customers. Please stop watching these videos. Stop visiting the deep web. This isn't a joke. It's people's lives, and they shouldn't be destroyed, tortured, or killed for the amusement of others. I already know that I won't leave this place alive, or intact, but maybe I can save someone else from this fate. Maybe even you. This happened just only 2 days ago, and I'm saying this now because I forgot about him, but he has messaged me. Now that is out of the way, this story isn't about a red room or any of that fake shit. Trust me, I've been on the deep web for about 3 years. Not once have I seen one of these things. I mean, I have seen videos of people getting killed, but not live feeds or anything. But the site I so happened to come across, the link was a bunch of random letters. And if you use Tor or something along those lines, you know what I mean. This link was sent to me via email, and the email read this: "Click this if you dare, smiley face." Now, I was thinking probably exactly what you were thinking right now. You either heard or read that. Another damn troll trying to scare people. So I just clicked the link. Nothing like I haven't seen before. Drugs, blood, cheesy sound effects. But I was sitting there laughing it off because I was thinking I guessed right. But then I clicked on an image of weed or something like that. I was sent to another page, and out of this page I was in. Keep in mind I have a VPN. And also an IP scrambler, just for safety reasons. But when this sent me to this page, out of the 3 years that I have been on the deep web, I have never had a site switch to a different site on me. So I was thinking that I misclicked. But then it made my screen full screen black page. But when I clicked on my screen, It popped up an error message saying, "We are sorry, but we are afraid to tell you that you can't leave this page. We are sending you to an admin right now. Please wait." So out of pure curiosity, I stayed and let it load. Then a video popped up, or I should say, a webcam. So I was thinking that I was going to get to talk to someone about the site. That was clearly fake, at least. And then a person with a normal face, top hat, black trench coat, and also black gloves appeared. Keep in mind that since stuff like this has happened before, I wear stuff that doesn't allow you to even see my skin color. Black gloves that go all the way up to my elbows. Yes, I know those are mostly meant for females, but I custom made mine so they have black widows crawling down them, so it looks pretty badass. Plain white hoodie, hockey mask, with H20 deliriously spray painted on it. He's my favorite YouTuber. And also I keep the hoodie up, so when my webcam appeared, I wasn't that scared that there was no way he could see what I looked like. So just to piss him off, I got closer to the camera and said, "Can you see my face now?" That seemed to anger him. He said, "Don't test me. You came to my site without an invite." After that, I went back into my chair and then said, "Okay, first of all, I got a link that sent me by email, and also your site is clearly fucking fake. I mean, do you think that you were going to be fooling someone?" That was when he said, "I used the fake web page for people to click a link via clicking a picture, then it sends them here, and it seems that you did that." I said, "I did that because I wanted to see how horribly overpriced a bag of fake-ass weed was going to be. And it seems that you are the dealer. Can I have some weed, please?" Just to fuck with him, I said that last part, and then he got really mad. And kind of did that noise that 10-year-olds make when they get pissed off. And then he said, or you could call it a yell that he did. He said, "Do not test me." I knew this prick wasn't going to do anything. So I tested him. Again, I said, "I ain't your fucking teacher, but if you want a math quiz, I'll be glad to give you one." Then he said, "That's it. I'm getting your address, and we're going to meet." I said, "Oh no, please don't. I don't want to meet you. You're too scary." Then I turned my IP scrambler and my VPN off, so that he could get the real IP, because I have a little surprise for him. Then he typed in my IP in the chat box that appeared, and I said, "Oh, good job. You found it. It seems you are getting the hang of this stuff. How would you like it if I gave you your IP?" He said, "Do it. More than likely you can't." So I used a couple of programs, and maybe about 3 minutes later, both of us are doing our things, and when I said, "I got it." Also, I got some other things too. So I typed in the chat box his name, address, phone number, and also the same things that his sister and his mother's address and phone number. I must have scared the living shit out of him. Oh God, I wish you saw his face. I was laughing so hard. And when I was done, he said, "I'm coming to meet you. You better prepare to die." I had some illegal weapons that I had bought off the deep web. Mini Uzis, a shotgun with a drum mag, and also a very deadly military-grade sniper rifle. And then I said, "Oh, please come over. I really want to meet you." And then I moved to the left because the guns were sitting right behind me, and in the dark so that you couldn't see them from the angle my webcam was sitting. The light from my PC screen sent a bright light beaming at the wall where my guns were sitting up against. And keep in mind, I live in the middle of bumfuck nowhere, so the nearest house is about 4 miles south or north of me. So I could shoot the guns and no one could hear them. I say this because what he said next. Those things are fake. And I said in a childish way, "Oh, no they're not." Then he said, like most people would say, "Prove it." So I took the sniper, and then took the tripod, and then hooked the sniper up to it. Put it on there. I used this thing so many times that I know the different metal and plastic make, especially when they barely touch, let alone lock onto each other. It seemed he didn't know that sound, so normally by that point, the either 5 times this has happened to me, during this year alone, might I add. It normally scares the other people away, because that shows them that the gun is real. But him, he didn't. He needed it to shoot to show him that it was real. So I put the sniper in my window, and then shot a tree about half a mile away. And that was an easy hit for this sniper, because this thing is such a beast when it comes to shooting. Then he said, "I ain't afraid of the sniper." The one I was afraid of was that shotgun. So I took the shotgun, and shot that one too. And then he jumped and said, "Stop with the sound effects." I said, "Okay, first of all, this isn't possible yet. And yet, I want to meet your sister and your mother. What weapon wants to meet them too? Then he screamed, "Please don't. Leave them out of this. I will leave, and we won't have to meet. I'm sorry for trying to scare you." Just like that, he shut down the site, and then never bothered me again until that message. The message reads, "Thank you for not attacking my family. I'm sorry for what I did. I will let you know that the site is now shut down. I only shot those weapons to scare him. I wasn't actually going to do shit. I'm not a murderer. I'm just a hacker." When I opened my eyes, I couldn't move. Oh no, not this again, I thought to myself, as my eyes shifted back and forth. Shadows danced across the room that I shared with my brother. I wonder what my brain has in store for me this morning. These seem to get worse every time I have them. I watched as an old man slunked into my room. He had no eyes, a bloody hook for a hand, and a disturbing grin on his face. He walked towards me slowly, exaggerating each step. His eyes got a little bit larger and darker as he stared more intently at me. Suddenly, he was right next to me in bed, looking down at me. He got on one knee and put his hook in my face. I watched as blood dripped off the tip, having it fall on my face. Then he put the tip on my neck. Bye-bye. "Titus!" Something slapped me in the face. It was my brother. "Bro, why'd you do that?" I had asked him, really annoyed. "You had that look on your face. You were scaring me." "I'm all right." "No, you're not. I told you, it's just sleep paralysis. Everyone gets it eventually." "I haven't," he said, all knowingly. "You're related to me, so you might," I said, patting his shoulder. "Come on, let's get ready for school." "I don't want to go to school," he whined. "You have to. It's good for you. We have this conversation every single morning. It's essential that you go to school." "Okay," he whined, walking to the bathroom. I got up and got dressed in my usual black attire. I put my coat on and went to the kitchen where my brother was eating already. I took out a piece of pizza and ate it cold. When I'm done, I usher my brother out the door. On the walk there, we talk about school, and as we near his school, I watch him run ahead to his small group of friends. As soon as he gets there, I run to my school, and I run to the library to try to finish my report before school begins. I type on the computer until the bell rings. I get up to walk to my class, but I am blocked by a jock. "Hey, fuckface," he said. "Hello, parasite," I retort. "Oh, haha, good one, fuckface." He fake laughs, and then he pushes me back. I use this to make my escape. I run around him, and as he comes at me, and practically races to my classroom to make it just on time, the jock isn't behind me. I complete my classes and go to the other side of the school to go pick up my brother. "Hey, how was your day?" "It sucked," he complained. "Oh, why is that?" I asked him. "Some guy came up and told all my friends that you got beat up by him. Then they started picking on me because they said that since you were weak, I was weaker." I kneel down at him, look him in the eye, and say, "Do I look like I got beat up to you?" "No," he said, "but I know you could beat up that jerk." "I could, but I won't, unless he were to pick on you. Don't worry about me. And as for your friends," I walk over to them and ask them the same question. They all said no. I replied with exactly, and walked away. My brother and I walked home in silence. I greeted my mother and cooked dinner. My brother waited patiently for it. My mother watched TV. It was silent until she said, "Your father will be home late again tonight." "Typical," my brother said. Mom turned to him slowly and said in a low voice, "You know that without your father, we wouldn't have a house or food, so don't get an attitude with me, young man, or you will feel what it's like to have no father." I put dinner in front of my brother and said quietly, "Just let it go, dude." We ate in silence and go to our rooms. "I want to run away," my brother says as he kicks a pile of dirty laundry. "You'll do no such thing," I told him. "We just have to live with the resources that we have. But it will be better without them. We can stow away on ships and travel the world and have adventures. Maybe you should write a book. It would be epic. But I don't want you to make it a reality, okay?" he grumbled. I pulled out my notebooks and started my homework while my brother shot hoops from different parts of the room. Once I finish, I throw myself up on my bed and close my eyes. I wake up to crying, screaming, and thrashing. I get up and look on the top bunk to make sure that my brother was all right, but he wasn't there. I panic and run out into the hallway to see my brother being dragged on the ground by my stepfather. I run up to him and punch him in the face. My stepfather fell back, letting go of my brother. I picked up my brother and thrusted him back at the door, got up, and started running, but my stepfather grabbed my foot and started to pull me down. I kicked into him and got out of it like a Chinese finger trap, and fought as I yelled at my brother to lock himself in the bedroom, and to open up when I yelled the code word. I kicked my father multiple times until he toppled over again. I ran and yelled the code word, heartache. He opens the door and I bust in, close it, and then lock it. My father came at the door. "You better open up this door, boy, or you're going to get what your brother has coming to him," he screamed at me. "Please don't let him take me, Titus," my brother whimpered. "Over my dead body," I yelled back without hesitation. But before he could force the words out, he stared as a crowbar slid through the crack in their door. Without hesitation, I hoisted my brother out of the window and told him to go run. I grabbed my emergency backpack and was getting ready to follow him, but was suddenly grabbed from behind. My father pulled me to the ground. "Why did you let that little shit get away?" he screamed at me. "To protect him from his own father," I yelled back. He kicked me in the mouth. "Shut up, boy. You're not my own, so maybe this won't hurt me as bad." He then started dragging me. I made an effort to leave the backpack in the room. As I was dragged down the hallway to the living room, "Here, take this one," I heard him say. "This is not the one that you promised me, Henry." I know, but the little shit got away. So take this one, and trust me, I will find that little useless boy. I'll give you a quarter of the price I originally offered for this one." "Half. You're not in the right position to argue with me, Henry," the man said, raising his gun to my stepfather's head, causing him to raise up his hands in defeat as the guy continued to speak. "You should be lucky that I'm even paying you at all for this one," he said, looking at me and smiling a menacing smile. "Take him, boys," he commanded. And like that, I was swept away. As I was being pulled out the door, I noticed the muffled sounds of my mother banging on the closet door, screaming and begging for them not to take me, but she went ignored. I was thrown into a trunk of a limo. Thoughts raced through my head like cars on a highway. Half of them were being exhausted, and the other half were the ways of escaping my demise. I was surprised when, no more than 3 minutes later, the trunk was thrown open. "Honestly, boys, this is no way to treat our new guest," I heard the man say, as he stuck out his hand. "Come on out, boy. Let me take a look at you." Without even thinking, I took his hand, and allowed myself to be helped out of the trunk. "What's your name, boy?" "Titus." "Ah, yes, I did hear that poor woman mention your name a few times." "What did you do to her?" I asked defensively. "Oh dear, Titus, that woman's fate is out of my hands," he said, with a voice that lacked sympathy. I felt like throwing up. I wished in the back of my mind that she was unharmed. "Now, Titus, let's discuss your fate," the man said snidely. "You're too old to be on my website, but you do have a boyishly handsome face. I'll give you that. You run a child pornography site?" I asked him, disgusted. The man chuckled. "No, nice guess, though. But no, my dear Titus. I traffic these children, make a profit, and the reason why I traffic the younger ones is because they are easier for people to teach. But why should you have to worry about all that? That is not your fate. Like I said, you're too old to teach. So what I want to do is put you on a less popular, but still successful site, and you'll be treated like royalty before you get bought. Because after all, you can't let good meat go to waste." "You're going to sell me to a cannibal?" I said, taking this all in too quickly. "Precisely, kid, or more like parts of you," was his simple, straightforward answer. "You better enjoy your last days." I threw up. The thoughts of me being eaten by another human, being contorted, and took life in my mind. It made me sick to my stomach. It made me gag. It made me actually throw up my dinner. The action took the man by surprise. I used this opportunity to slam my fist into his cheek. The men who threw me in the trunk pounced on me, but I was quick to get them off. I took lessons in self-defense and Tai Chi. I know how to win. The two who fell on the ground as they collided into each other. I grabbed the man by his neck and started choking him. Something hit the side of my head, knocking me over, allowing the man to scramble away. I looked up quickly as I saw one of the two bodyguards' foot. He stomped my head into the cement multiple times until my vision blurred, and I eventually blacked out. Is he dead? No. Good. I want him to suffer now. Likewise, said the bodyguard as he threw me into the trunk. You really came through for me. You shall be rewarded greatly. Thank you, sir. What do you want? That boy. As I opened up my eyes, I could see a confused look spread across his boss's face. I didn't know you were cannibalized. You must not know a lot about me, boss. True. The boss thought for a minute. I'll give you a discount on him. $70. The bodyguard's eyes lit up like a child on Christmas morning. Deal. When I woke back up, I stared up at a wooden ceiling. I tried to move, but I was tied down with what felt like leather straps. That was quite a display you put on, Titus, I heard an unfamiliar voice say. For a second, I didn't understand what he was talking about, but I realized he must have been talking about when I almost killed that guy. Almost. It's good that I saved my boss, because now I can have you. The bodyguard? You seem surprised. What do you want with me? I asked angrily, growing tired of being tossed around by people. Pleasure. New thoughts came to my head. Am I going to get raped? No, this can't be happening. Don't worry, it's not what you're probably thinking. It's a lot worse, he said in a giggly voice as he picked up a hacksaw. What freak show was I dragged into? I could feel cold sweats running down my face. I was starting to panic. I wanted to scream, but nothing came out. My voice was gone. My tears were rushing. My sweat was getting in my eyes. The bodyguard laughed gleefully as he put the hacksaw down onto my face, slicing my eye in half. My voice had found me, and I was screeching at the top of my lungs. I was blind in one eye. Blood formed a puddle in my eye socket. This is the end for me. I was going to die here, in this room, with the strange man who was now talking to himself. I looked up with the last of my eyesight and saw that, no, he wasn't talking to himself. He was talking to a camera. He was filming this whole thing. As soon as I noticed the man turn around, throwing something, hitting me square in the other eye. It was the needle of a dart. I was now completely blind. I was screaming at the top of my lungs. All I could hear was the sound of my screaming, and then nothing. Blood filled my mouth like a tidal wave. I started choking, suffocating as blood poured down my throat. He cut off my tongue. I could no longer mutter a sound despite my desperate wheezing sounds. I could hear the man more clearly now. Ah, isn't that better? Now I can better hear myself. And speaking of hearing, should we allow the subject to hear his ultimate demise? Or should we take it so that he doesn't know what's going to come up next? There was a pause, and then giggly laughter. 47 of you voted for the boy to have his hearing taken, but 179 of you want him to keep it, and some of you can't make up your mind. I'm talking to you three, Shelby Lee Carroll, at 783 Cornwall Street, South Carolina, Ashton Cooper, at 456 Wall Street, New York, and you Henry Falconer, the boy's father, 722 Copper Lane, L.A. The recognition of my address must have changed something in what I had imagined, I guess. Miserable-looking face, because the bodyguard let out a howl of laughter. It was at this point that not only I realized that he was not only filming this, but this was live stream. Yes, that's right, my lovely viewers. This boy is special. His own father sold him for $1,500 to my boss. This boy was very skillful to nearly escape, but alas, I stopped him by stomping his head on the cement a few times, which is something I quite enjoyed. And say, Henry, did you ever find that little shit? A pause came. Still looking? I see. And when he finds them, he's selling him to my boss for child trafficking. Well, at least if I don't find him first, he said, letting out a howl of laughter. I was dying on the inside. It's bad enough that this was happening to me, but if this happened to my little half-brother, I would never forgive myself in whatever afterlife comes after this hell. And now I couldn't tell the difference between tears, blood, and sweat, but I knew that I was crying. I know I couldn't speak, but right now I was screaming every cuss word in the book. A blade touched my neck and went down, slicing my shirt and skin in half. "You're ripped, Titus." I wasn't sure whether he meant my shirt or my body, or if it was a crappy pun describing both. Next thing I heard was a searing sound as I felt a hot iron touch my body. I couldn't scream. All I could do was feel the iron, and there wasn't anything that I could do to express my undesirable pain, but gasp and gag. The bastard rubbed the thing down my body, searing my skin. I just wanted to die. "You're hot," he said jokingly. I prayed for death. The man was laughing more and more as he did more things to me. He cut me multiple times, then doused my cut with hot chili pepper sauce. He strung my nipples together as close and as tight as he could get them without tearing them out completely, then started stringing the thin string to hold up my penis. He made it to where every time I struggled, it would pull my testicles out of my body a little bit more. He then stuck needles into my outer and inner thighs. He cut off my fingers one by one, making comments and puns, and then asking the audience what he should do next in between tortures. All I could do was gasp, pray, and listen till I heard the bastard striking up conversations with my stepfather once again. I'm getting bored with this subject, but before I finish him off, Henry, I want you to decide how to finish off the boy. He is your son after all. There was a pause. "I'm sorry, can you say that out loud, Henry?" My bastardly stepfather's voice rang out and echoed throughout the room. I said, "Burn that little deadbeat no-good bitch alive." I heard the familiar bellowing voice of my father. "No, no, 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 no." I heard the screaming from my mother in the background. "Shut up, bitch. Your deadbeat son was no good in the first place." "Whoa, drama," the monster rang out in a little sing-song as he cut them off. "Well, you heard the man. Burn the little no-good deadbeat alive. Now hold on a second while I go and get my gas can." I heard floorboards creak as he walked away. I used this time to reflect on my situation. I tried to imagine what I looked like. I tried to imagine the sick crowd of people watching my demise. I prayed more and more that my brother could get out safe. My life had flashed before me. In my thinking I heard something. It must have been in my imagination. It was a whimpering, a crying. It sounds familiar. "Titus, I'm so sorry." "What's that?" "No, it couldn't be. Before he comes back, I'm going to put you out of your misery." The last stab that I received was to the heart. The last thing I heard was, "Good night, fuckface." The boy then turned from the corpse that once was his schoolmate, that he bullied. But he did not deserve all that. No, not like that. I never knew his dad was a sick fuck. Heck, I never knew his dad was even a sicker fuck than him. Until I decided to get something out of the basement today. All I knew now is that his and my father did not deserve to live. He turned to the camera and said, "I know where you all live. I will find you. I will kill you for allowing this poor soul to suffer. People like you disgust me, and after I finish off your host, Henry, you're next." People were logging off now. The show was over. Only a few stayed to watch the host die, I suppose. I hid in my hiding spot as I heard the creaking of the floorboards. The monster who was once my father walked in. "Aw, why did so many people?" But I did not allow him to finish his sentence. I shot him in the head. "Son?" was the last words out of that pathetic loser's mouth. I stomped his head until he was vanquished. Then I calmly took note of names and addresses of the people who viewed this event, poured gas around and on the two corpses, and lit it on fire. I walked away from my house as flames licked up the side. Titus will not die in vain. I will find them all. I will kill them all. As I promised, I will. Sadly, I will never get to tell Titus how sorry I am for not only how he died, but also how I treated him, and even more, how I was too shocked that my father was doing this. I could have saved him. Yet seeing my own father transfer into that monster sent me out of my mind. Now what only matters is how I was going to first find this no-good stepfather, and even better, Titus's stepbrother, because not only did I want to kill that man, but I also wanted to save his stepbrother and his mother. Maybe if I did this, Titus, in whatever afterlife that he's in, could forgive me, and maybe even rest in peace.
If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, like, and hit the bell for notifications on future videos, and become a stalker of the night. And I'll see you next time.